Good morning, guys. Welcome to Thursday. It's nice to see you, my friends. How are we doing out there? We're like a week away from Thanksgiving. On that note, with holidays, there is going to be a holiday tool set come out next week for you. Keep an eye out that. We'll be releasing that on Monday. And then in December, we're going to have some community support, Zoom calls, and things like that to help us move through the fun with the holiday. Now, if you're new to me, I am Marshall Burtcher, and I help codependents rediscover happiness after codependency by helping them heal their trauma, come to know who they are, and create happy relationships. Now, I need to get this shout out to the community real quick here. If you're looking for a safe haven here on the internet, a place where you can feel seen, valued, and heard, where you can get access to tools, guidance, and support, the community is for you. It's your safe haven through your journey out of codependency, back into who you are, back into the brilliance that you be, back into your own happiness and your own well-being. The link is above on Facebook. It's below on YouTube, and I'm going to share this out right now. Boom. Okay. The community is called the Thriving Beyond Codependency Community. There's like 3,000 of us there moving through this experience together, so you will find out you're in good company with us. Also, if you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell. If you're on Instagram, check me out. My link is in the bio, and if you're on Facebook, it's nice to see you. Okay, this morning we're going to be talking about the 4 zones of connection. Now, I've got a link in the description that connects you to an image that shows you the 4 zones of connection. They are companionship, intimacy, support, and play. Now, we're looking at relationships. We're looking at how interaction happens between human beings. These are the 4 dominant areas that we're playing in. So way back in 2008 through 2011, I was going through an apprenticeship in relationships with a man named Robert Bilton, who's a therapist that worked up in Manitoba, Canada. And he had this concept called FIT. And it didn't break down, that's why it broke down into groups. But it gave me an idea of looking at compatibility and connection through zones, through areas that are dominant in relationships that support happiness, that support well-being, that promote the growth of the relationship and its longevity. And this is what came out of that idea, is that we need companionship, we need intimacy, we need support, we need play in order to thrive in relationships. And that's why I call these the 4 zones of connection, because this is where we're dominantly playing when we're in relationship with someone, whether it's a romantic relationship, whether it's a friendship, a business relationship, therapeutic relationship, professional, whatever it is. These are interacting at some level. Now, in codependency, these don't exist. See, and in the fantasy that we see on like The Bachelor or other dating things, people are not really they're not playing consciously in these zones. What's really going on is they're hoping something will hit, something will click, and then, whoa. And a lot of times what happens, especially if we take it down to codependency, intimacy and support are highly activated within the seduction, discard, abuse dynamic, or the sad cycle. And companionship gets in there a little, but then they run away or they discard you. Play gets in there, but usually is a love bomb, things like that. So they're wildly unbalanced and they're overemphasized. For the codependent, we tend to emphasize support and intimacy because that's where we feel most connection, especially in support. This is why people pleasers are always out trying to help people, because this is how they feel valuable and it's how they feel connected to another human being, is by fixing someone else's pain. See this challenge here in this dynamic? Now, this is what gets fascinating. So when we start to heal, this leverage, or this focus rather, this emphasis moves towards play. Because play, if balanced with intimacy, companionship, and support, creates a vitality in the relationship. There are relationships that are highly weighted in play. That's usually people who are emotionally avoidant will wait in play because they don't want to deal with the heaviness of support. They don't want to deal with the proximity of intimacy, and companionship needs to be light and fluffy for them. So they're not really available for the whole pie that way. They're just playing over here and play because it's easy. And then those of us who need support or intimacy, we feel empty. We feel unseen in the relationship. So this is how these 4 zones work together and how we can use them to help us understand what's going on in our world. So in the relationship strategy, I use these 4 zones first as a framework to establishing broad understanding of where compatibility exists. Because in each of these 4 zones, there are other categories interacting with them that I call components. These are 10 components that we'll talk about in our next trainings, are what create the effectiveness or the deficits in these 4 zones. Now, think about this for a moment. It's really cool when you can step back and go, okay, I can look at my relationship and I can see where it's dominantly weighted. So let's talk about each of the 4 zones so you know how to use it that way. So companionship is about the physicality of the relationship. It's about physical presence, emotional presence, mental, spiritual presence. It is the beingness with the other human being. Are they actually there? Are they even physically, emotionally, spiritually, sexually available to you? Are you available to them in those areas? So companionship is really about the presence of the individual. This might sound simple, but presence within our human being can be really, really challenging. If we look at it from the angle of codependency, that means we have to give up our fantasy. We have to connect with the reality of who the other person actually is. We have to be willing to acknowledge reality and be honest with ourselves. So that comes back to those 2 core priorities that all codependents need to choose on an active basis, and one of them is honesty. Am I going to be sober with this person and find out who they are just in the presence of them? So that's one of the big challenges for us in codependency, is to break out of the fantasy, or recognize it, pop it, come back to reality. Boom, boom, boom. The From Addiction to Connection course is what's going to help you do that real quick if you're struggling with that. And that's in the Heal Yourself membership, which you get access to with the relationship strategy. Now, so companionship is about the physicality of it. What is it like to be in their presence? Does it feel good? Does my body like them? Does their body like me? Do I feel safe? Do I relax? Or am I tense? Am I on alert? What's going on there? We want to be very conscious about that. So we got to be anchored in our body. We got to be conscious to what's going on for us in this experience. So number 2, intimacy. It's not about the sex. Everybody's like, intimacy, sex. No. Sex is a form of intimacy, but it isn't intimacy. It's an expression of it. Intimacy is about being seen, being known deeply, being experienced in ways that are vulnerable and delicate to us. It's really about that known component, known emotionally, physically, spiritually, intellectually, to be understood and to feel it viscerally is intimacy. So intimacy requires emotional availability, emotional proximity. It requires the capacity to acknowledge another person's experience and attempt to connect with it in their frame of work. It requires us to be willing to receive attention, to receive affection and praise, adoration, to receive a positive love. So intimacy can be a real challenge for us because it's not about sex. It's about being seen. It's about being witnessed and being valued in that being seen. So one of the bigger challenges, especially if we're coming out of codependency, is letting ourselves be seen, letting ourselves receive, and to feel secure in that. So how attachment and your attachment style, whether it's anxious or fearful, avoidant or dismissive or complex, disorganized, comes into real play here. Because this is where we start to feel bonded and we start to experience a need to have that person with us. Then they don't complete us. We're not needing them to complete our world, to complete who we are, to fix our problems, to make us whole. But the healthy need of, I want to lean on you, I want to rely on you. I have a need, I want to ask you for you to contribute to that need. That's intimacy. This is where we really get into the delicateness of relationship. And it's often where there's a lot of conflict and a lot of pain, a lot of trauma can show up there. So I teach you how to manage that. I teach you what do you need to have safe intimacy? What does intimacy even feel like for you? How does it express itself? How can you identify it? How can you identify safe people that way? This is the real challenge here, and that's where we go deep in the relationship strategy. Zone 3, that's about support. Now, codependence, we're really good at it. We are good at support. We are good at connecting dots for people. We're good at acknowledging their pain, identifying the pain, that kind of thing. This is a different kind of support. Support means I'm going to empower, I'm going to hold space with you. I'm going to empower you to find your answers by trusting in your capability. I'm going to offer time and space and availability and energy for your pain. And I'm going to ask for you to do the same for mine when I need it. I'm going to allow myself to be seen this way. I'm going to allow myself to be connected this way, to be supported, to be valued this way. So support is one of those tricky elements in a relationship because it's very easy to lump everything into that. And it's also one of the most heavy aspects of relationship because if there's too much emphasis on support, it kills the life force in the relationship. It doesn't really work well for long-term joy. So that requires balance, and it requires finesse and understanding how to not carry their load for the person or persons you're in a relationship with, but to have positive, healthy help and allow them to discover their solutions while you kind of, hold vigilance on the territory. Allow them to figure this out, and then they do the same for you. Relationships are a reciprocal experience. It's mandatory. It's necessary for everyone to be in a conscious engagement for people to feel fulfilled. Because that's, in my mind, the goal of a relationship is satisfaction. It's not about equality, because you start measuring things in a relationship, you get into scorekeeping, then you're going to destroy the relationship with resentment. This is not a transactional experience. It's a reciprocal experience. And that means satisfaction, because satisfaction can be gauged and understood. And because it's an emotional experience, and relationships are dominantly emotionally driven, right? So, support. Understanding how we can contribute to the well-being of another and being willing to ask for and receive that contribution from another. And then zone number 4, which is about play. I'll tell you, have you seen that YouTube video or the dating video from like the 80s? And they're like these guys who are like, I want fun, play, I'm a fun guy, Everybody wants play, but nobody really knows what play is. And that's kind of the trick here. And that's why I throw it in there. Play is one of the big purposes of relationship in my world. I mean, look at best friends. They're out there doing silly things. I mean, me and my best friend, we're always doing silly things. Just dumb shit. I watch my daughter and my son with their best friends doing their silly things. Play is one of those essential components to relationship. We as adults, play has kind of been conditioned out of us. We've been told to be serious and heavy and blah, blah, blah. And the relationships really suffer for it. And a lot of times couples and relationships will put play into it with like a vacation or some sort of adventure in hopes of putting out a fire, rather than nurturing the relationship through play. So in this category, you discover what play means for you, not just in behaviors and in activities, but in the essence of it, so that you can see it in another human being. Because I'll tell you, one of the most important elements, one of the most important values for me in relationship is humor. Because humor guarantees play. It guarantees play throughout the mundaneness and the boringness of healthy relationship and day-to-day life. So play is a very, very powerful and important place in your relationship. So now that you know what those 4 zones stand for, what they're identifying, you can sit back and look at your friendships. You can look at your work relationships. You can look at your romantic relationships and ask yourself the question, how am I doing in these zones? How's the relationship functioning for me here? What do I need and want that would add to it? I can ask the person I'm working with, my partner, whoever it is, what do they see is going on? What is happening for them? What do they need? Because you might be doing just fine over here in play, but they may not be. So it's a really cool way in which to diagnose and understand your current relationship. And when you're starting out and building a new relationship, this is where you start looking for compatibility. I'm going to show you more in our next couple of training videos what to look for in those specific zones, because there's 2 types of compatibility you've got to be aware of. One's called functional compatibility and one's called experiential compatibility. If you don't have either of them, you need both. Often, a lot of people don't have one or the other, and that's why relationships fail. You need both. And that helps you understand what to define and understand in these 4 zones of connection for you. So guys, as today's training, take a moment, step back and think about what your relationships have been, what current ones are like, and see what's working well and what you'd like to add to or change in your relationships. And if you want assistance in getting deep on this, you want to go real deep and want to understand what this means for you, you're ready for relationships that really work for you because of who you are, the relationship strategy is for you. We have open enrollment until December 5th. Link is above on Facebook, below on YouTube. Click on that. There's also, if you got questions or you want to talk about options and getting enrolled or whatever, there's the answer link. Click on that. You can email me. You can show up on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Mountain Time and talk to me directly in a Zoom room. You can message me. There's a variety of ways of getting in contact with me so you can get answers to those questions. So join us for the 16 classes currently. I'll probably go a little longer, maybe a little shorter. I'm not sure yet because it's a beta course. But I'm going to teach you how to decode this so that you can put it into action in a way that changes your life, changes the way your relationships work. So there you go, guys. Appreciate you. Remember that you're worth knowing, loving, and keeping. And I will see you guys in our next training video.